All right, let's go ahead and get started. We are grateful and excited that all of you have decided to join us today for today's webinar, How to Retain Talent in Today's Market. Texas Governor Greg Abbott issues an executive order prohibiting any vaccine mandates by any entity. Simultaneously, OSHA has announced that it is finished with its COVID-19 emergency temporary standards for 100+ employee businesses and has sent it for final review to the Office of Management and Budget, OMB. Vaccine mandates, weekly testing, and all of this going on, businesses are desperately trying to figure out how to retain talent, any talent for that matter. We have a lot to talk about. Before we jump into today's agenda, let me introduce to you Cindi Filer. Cindi is the CEO and founder of Innovative Outsourcing. Cindi, why don't you give us a quick background on you and your business?
Hey guys, glad to be here with you guys again today. And I run a staffing and recruiting business, have for about 27 years. I have about 32 years in corporate HR. And that just means that I spend a lot of time talking to companies about hiring people, because when you have a recruiting business, you talk about these great ways to hire people. Well, in today's economy, not only is it difficult to hire people, but it's really imperative that we retain people, because that's the number one reason things that people are having trouble with. Vistage, who is a CEO roundtable organization, just did a survey to all of their members about what their number one issue was. And interestingly enough, it's not supply chain, it's retention. So we're going to talk about that today because I think it's a pretty important topic. So hopefully you can glean some nuggets on how to retain talent. They say it's kind of funny that I talk about this. It's like my number one thing I speak on, because if my clients are bad at retaining people, then I get to hire more for them and I would make more money. But I feel bad if I hire for somebody and they don't retain people. So I'm kind of doing this, and it always takes away my revenue, but it makes me feel better as an HR person. So anyway, excited.
Staffing too. I mean, you put in actual retention plans and kind of work more intimately with each one of your clients to make sure that they've got the right strategies in place to retain that talent.
Yeah, we do. I'll talk about that a little bit later in the time today, but yeah, we definitely do that to help our people.
Awesome. And my name is Jonathan Page. I am the CEO and Chief Visionary of InPrime Legal. We serve small to mid-sized businesses in 5 core areas of the law, including labor and employment and company structure. The profit sharing plan that I'll be discussing later on in this presentation is right within our wheelhouse of the type of legal projects that we do for our clients. So with that, Mallory, why don't you power up the PowerPoint presentation? We're going to go through some brief announcements and some house rules, and then Cindi will circle back around with you so that you can put up your presentation and get started with the agenda. So, couple of house rules to go over. The first house rule is all of you will be muted during this webinar. Second house rule, pose your questions in the chat. We will try to get to those questions during the webinar, but if we're not able to, we will send out an email afterwards where we put together kind of the most general questions. We don't identify anyone by name. We provide that answer so that everybody can benefit. The chat's not for political commentary. We mentioned this on the last webinar. We're all here for the same reason, and it's building a successful business that retains the talent we need to be able to push our mission and our vision in the marketplace in order to sell our products and services and be successful. That is a common interest that we all share. And so I ask that nobody, put opinions in about whether vaccine mandates are good or bad and so forth. And then our goal is delivering concrete value. That's our hope today for you guys, is you walk away with tangible things that you can do within your business from a retention perspective. And we're grateful to have you here. And hopefully we'll get a few laughs out of you at the least. If I make just terrible jokes, maybe that'll be funny on its own. So a quick webinar roadmap. We've gotten through introductions. We're going to start with Cindi Filer on retention. We will get into an innovative software that InPrime has internally developed that drafts a contract and certain employment legal agreements like profit sharing plans. And then we'll get into a discussion about profit sharing and using that as a retention strategy. And then we'll end with some closing remarks and some announcements. So why don't we go ahead and power down that PowerPoint. Cindi, if you want to put yours up. And while you do that, I just want to do a quick moment of silence for General Colin Powell. He passed away today. General Powell was an amazing American, not only just the first African-American to serve as our Secretary of State in this great country, but just made numerous contributions to America and to our society. So just a few quick seconds to keep him and his family in his prayers. So, all right, Cindy, let's go ahead and turn this over to you.
Great. Well, can everybody see my screen? Jonathan, can you see it? If you
I can see it.
Great. So we're just going to go through a few minutes today just to kind of help you start thinking about what you can do. Because when people call me and the first thing they do is they say, Cindy, you won't believe what just happened. My best blankety blank, she's been here for 20 years. She is kind of the bread and butter of our organization, and she just gave me a resignation notice. And that is heartbreaking, right? That is not only it's difficult for our business, but sometimes it's heartbreaking for us. And I think a lot of times we don't know how people are feeling. We don't know what's causing them to leave or stay. We get totally caught off guard when they do leave. And so I think if we knew that we had done everything we could possibly do before she walked in our office and gave us the resignation, we would feel much better than if we didn't have a plan. So this is about having a plan. It kind of goes back to, if anybody's ever heard me talk, do you have a talent or recruiting strategy, right? Just when somebody leaves and then you call me and then you need me to fill your job 2 weeks ago, that is more being reactionary rather than being proactive. So I'm a big fan of working with our clients to make sure we're proactive. We're creating that recruiting, that talent recruiting strategy, but we're also creating that retention strategy. So do we have a people strategy? Do you have a people strategy at your company? If you don't, you might want to talk to me because it's as important as, say, your marketing strategy or your cash flow strategy. It's kind of important. So, why now? Why are we talking about this now? Well, 50% of employees say if they're required to return to a 5-day-a-week in the office job, they're going to look for another job. Okay, 50%. I know many of us are coming back to work. That's an interesting statistic. 41% of all employees say they are currently looking outside at other companies for other jobs. They're looking outside their company for other jobs. That is crazy, 41%. Largest number I've ever seen. Some surveys that I've looked at said that could be upwards of 50 to 60. So I'm taking the conservative approach of 41. When I did this same speech 2 months ago, that number was 25.
Cindy, have you ever seen this in the labor market before today?
No, I've seen a hot labor market because when you've owned a recruiting business for 27 years, you've gone through we have too many people, we have too many companies, we have too many people, we have too many companies, right? So, you're always going to have an ebb and flow in labor. I've never seen that before. It's crazy, which I'm sure that's not the people that are listening on the phone. I'm sure that's somebody else's company where everybody's leaving, but just in case that it might be ours in the future, let's listen to this. So, and then the job market is just kind of like the housing market. I keep likening it to the fact with my clients that it's like buying a house in Atlanta, that if you find one you like, you need to buy it today, which is not exactly how we were all taught to hire, slow to hire, right? That doesn't work today. If you're slow to hire, you won't hire, right? Because if you're interviewing Jan and you decided to tell me to wait for a week to look for a couple other candidates, Jan will be gone, right? You got to almost put the offer on the house before you go see it. That's about where we are in the job market, which I know is disconcerting, but that's why we are where we are. And the reason I mention that, because you're saying that's hiring. Well, if you don't want to do all this hiring that's so hard right now, you need to retain your staff. So that's why we're talking about that. And then again, the Georgia unemployment rate it took a big spike up and now it's way back down again. In fact, we're a lot lower than the national average at 3.7% as of today, which you think 3.7%, that's not a lot. It's now lower than it was before the pandemic.
Wow.
And 3.7% unemployment is pretty much full employment, meaning that the people that aren't getting jobs, oftentimes, and I'm not speaking about your brother-in-law or your best friend, but oftentimes there are people who maybe are trying to find jobs that they're not qualified for, or they're really not looking, right? Now, of course, there's those people out there that are on unemployment that are trying to find jobs that really can't. And, I know that's the case. So anyway, we're going to talk really quickly today. This is about an hour and a half talk we're doing in 30 minutes. So we're going to talk about 10 things that matter most to your employees and your candidates. Strategize the 10 things, strengthen them, communicate them, and revisit them. So what I'd love for you to do as a company is let's focus on these 10 things. And if you and your teams can even focus 10 minutes a week on how we're going to strengthen these things, it's going to be well to your advantage in the future. Okay, this number one I'm going to come back to in a minute, but have great managers. The number one reason people leave a company is because of the manager. The one reason people come back to a company or have their friends come work for their company is because of the managers. So even though we will talk about salary and all those kind of things and ways to keep your people, the number one thing that you need to consider is how are you and your managers doing at managing people? And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about that in a minute. Secondly, create a great career path. I have an interesting story. There's a millennial in my life who I had talked to, took a job, about a year ago. Took a job, and this was 3 weeks ago. I talked to him and he was like, I don't really love this job. I don't really know where I'm going to go in the company. Nobody's really talking to me about how I'm doing or anything else. I think I'm going to look for a job, and can you help me kind of figure out kind of my next steps? And maybe I'll look up some positions in other companies and those kind of things. Now, remember, this person had just been in their job for about 8 months. So probably hasn't brought a ton of value yet to a company, right? Because we're still learning, and he's about ready to leave. Fast forward 3 weeks, and I have a conversation with the same young man, and he says, I am sure I'm going to get quite a raise in the next few months. I'm really excited about where I'm going. I could go for this job in the company or this job in the company. And they tell me that I'm doing a really good job, and I got to meet with the leadership of the company, and I can see myself working there till I retire. Not a joke. Same individual 3 weeks later, no change in pay at this point. But what happened? He went from, I don't know where I fit here, to they like me. This is the career path. They see me going in 2 different directions. This is what they see will happen to my salary. And I think I could stay here until I retire. Oh my gosh, they didn't spend any money, but they got strategic, and they decided to, how do we keep people, especially millennial people? They created a good career path. Now, I don't know if I don't know enough about this company, if they created the path or they just explained it to them. You may actually have a good career path, but have you told your people what it is? Have you told the people how long they could be in this job before they go to the next job? Have you told them where they go next? Again, such an interesting thing that happened. I mean, could be there until he retires. Wow, that is just such a humongous difference. Offer a competitive salary. I love this slide because in old days, a year ago, competitive salary meant on market, right? A market-based salary or market average. Now it means in many positions, especially those that are difficult to find, that you will probably have to be upwards of 50% above the midpoint of the salary. So in order to keep people. And then I talked to these people who are like, well, we want to find the needle in the haystack that's a little cheaper, right? So that's great. You can hire those people it'll look cheaper. It could mean that they are a little cheaper for a reason, and you're going to find out why after you hire them. But you could get lucky and just find somebody who's a little cheaper, but then they're going to find out from their friends, neighbors, and online that 3 months from now that they were a little too cheap, and they're not going to stay, right? So when you find a bargain, it's usually not a bargain in the salary world. So make sure that you are looking at your people's salaries, make sure they're well over market. We are up 6% from this time last year on salaries in the Atlanta market. So if you haven't given your people at least a 6% cost of living raise, you need to really look considerably at that, because you don't want to lose your people. And I would
That's the thing. Your people are looking at their salaries. So if you're not looking at their salaries, there's a disconnect already.
Yeah, and if you've got that mindset of, oh, they've worked for me forever, they're just going to stick, they like where we are. Okay, that only works when they're down 3 or 4%. It doesn't, when you're down 15%, that doesn't hold water. So make sure you're looking at those things. Provide health benefits and 401k or more PTO. So I know some of you are small business owners and really is hard to provide health benefits. But for those of you that can provide good health benefits, 70% of our candidates want health benefits. That means there's 30% out there that are a second wage earner or something that don't have to have them, but 70% do, right? So make sure that if you can be a company that provides great health benefits, that you do. I know that is expensive. 401ks are very important for those of you that can do that. If you can't do either one of those things, or even if you can, recognize that as a small business, more PTO is a great option for you. I can tell you it doesn't cost anything. And those of you that have people know that it does cost something because it's the opportunity cost of them not doing their job or whatever. And I get that. But PTO is something that can differentiate you. Delta Airlines, that has 2 weeks after the first year of vacation time or PTO, they can't really change that very quickly because that would be a huge, incredible cost to their company if they did that. But could you go from 2 to 3 weeks or even 3 to 4 weeks of PTO time to keep your people, right? Or to be able to attract people? If you've got 2 weeks of vacation right now and you're trying to attract or retain people, you better relook at that, because that's not even the norm anymore. When my daughter got out of college, she's an accounting person. And when she got out of college, the offers were 4 weeks, right? That's the offer out of college. So we need to be really careful about what we're doing there. And as small business owners, we can give more. So look at that as kind of a lever. I talk about these things with my staff as kind of levers, because when we work with a client to help them get new people as well as retain their people, we look at all these things. Can you provide health benefits? That's great. If you can't, do more PTO. Can you do high salaries? If you can't, do more PTO, right? It's all kind of a game, right? It's how do we use those levers to get people? If you can't do a good salary, can you let them work from home, which is our next thing. Again, provide the flexible hours and a flexible work location.
Quick on the PTO, a quick example of what I've seen an employer do is say, go to their employees and say, hey, we want to increase our PTO. What we need from you is each of you to create 3 critical procedures that are the most critical things that you do as an employee. We need to put it down in a procedure, so while you're on vacation, we can have somebody else follow that procedure and do that. And they get a double benefit out of that because they get awesome procedures, which will help them in case that employee leaves. They're hiring new employees. And it kind of gets everybody around. This is how we can put more PTO in place.
Yeah, good. And also it helps them kind of with a succession plan in case somebody wins the lottery and gets to move to Florida right away. Yeah. The flexible work location is key at this point. Again, people got a taste of flexible work location and they're not wanting to give it up, right? The majority of the people want to stay home or want a hybrid environment. Most people do not want to come back to the office full time. I understand if you run say a restaurant and work from home is not an option for you. I totally understand that. But if you have a company where it's going to be hard to explain to people why they can't work from home because they could be their computer programmer and actually work from home, my favorite approach, if I got to choose, is a hybrid approach in which you work 3 days a week on site, 2 days a week from home, because I think that provides the flexibility people like, but also keeps the culture that we so need to keep people. So again, that flexible hybrid situation would be something that if you could incorporate that long-term, not only will you retain your people, but you'll also be able to hire. Because right now when a company calls us and says, we're 100% on site and we're going to be 100% on site and we're not flexible about that, and it's a job that could be flexible, not like like a wait staff at a restaurant or something. It's a deal killer. Like the number of resumes that we get for that position goes from this 200 number to like a 20 number. So just know that you're decreasing the pool of candidates if you don't offer that.
OSHA PPS that's coming out will not apply to purely remote workers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So another consideration.
That's not really the hybrid, but you kind of have to then say we'll never see our people. So
yes.
Yeah, I think you could get away around the mandate that way, but whoo, might kill culture, right? If you're 5 days a week, I think we talked about this last time, but if you're 5 days a week remote, studies have shown that you have 40% less employee engagement. And that kills productivity. So, okay, I'm going to go over this really, really fast because I know we're kind of but I think it's important. Employee engagement, what that means is that if I asked an employee at your company whether or not that they thought that it was a great place to work, that they feel like they're in tune with what's going on at the company, that they feel like they have a place there, that they feel like long-term there's a place there for them, that they love it, that's employee engagement, right? And for teams that scored in the top quartile on employee engagement, 41% lower absenteeism, 40% higher quality work, 20% higher sales, 21% higher profitability, and 59% less turnover. I mean, look at that last number, 59% less turnover. So focusing on this employee engagement and getting that top quartile in employee engagement fixes so many things, right? I mean, I can come at you with an HR perspective and tell you to do all these other things, but if you just focus on that. So the question is, and this goes back to, it's really the manager, that first point that we talked about. So this is all from a survey done by It's the Manager by Jim Clifton. It's through StrengthsFinder, and it is, this was an actual poll that was done with lots of workers that were anywhere from lower level workers all the way to director level. So I'm just going to go through them, and these are things that you should go through with your leadership teams. I know it's expected of me at work, right? Are we making sure that even after the pandemic that people know what they are going to be responsible for and that they're being evaluated on? Has that changed since then? And have we rechanged their job description, those kind of sheets? I have the materials and equipment to do my work right. So many people I talk to do not have the materials and equipment to do their work right. At work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. Are you making sure that your people are working in their sweet spot? Are you even asking them? Are you asking them during performance appraisals? Are you doing the thing that you love to do? Of course, all of us have to do 30% of work that is probably not our favorite, but 70% of our work should be in our sweet spot. Are we asking them what their percentages are? Like, how much do you work in your sweet spot? Because a lot of people leave jobs because they're doing stuff that they hate. When if we knew that, we could change up their job duties and make them do more what they like to do. In the last 7 days, I've received recognition or praise for doing good work. Are we catching our people doing good work? And are we telling them about it? Are we speaking out to them? And remember, these are not things that I came up with. These are things that the employees came up with in the survey. So are we not only catching our people doing good things, but also then telling them how good of specific things that they're doing? Specific, timely feedback. Really, really important. Not, hey, Bob, you're doing a good job, but hey, Bob, I saw you do that presentation to the client and it was so succinct and perfect. No wonder he signed on the bottom line in 1 day, right? That's specific and timely feedback, and it works to keep people.
Yes. A quick thing on that.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who owns a $500 million company, and one of his top executives mentioned to me, man, my friend, I'm not going to give his name, it never tells me how good of a job I'm doing. Mm-hmm. This is like one of his top paid executives in a $500 million company. So if you think this just applies to, the administrative staff, it doesn't. This is executives at a high level are looking for this as well.
Absolutely. Recognition and gratitude. I just did my whole speech on gratitude to a group of people on Friday. It's amazing how gratitude can impact people. My supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. We used to have this line between work and home. And so it used to be that we really shouldn't talk to anybody about what they do at work or what they did at home. And now that's not what people want. They want to be known as a person. They want to be someone to ask them about, hey, I know Johnny, your son, had a baseball game last night. How'd that go? Right? Do we care about them as a person and not just about their output? It's making a difference. If they want to stay, they want somebody that does care about them. There is someone at work who encourages my development. Are we encouraging development? Are we, even though we're not going to send them out to $10,000 programs in California? I mean, there's so much free webinar leadership development stuff. Are we doing things that we can do as a company to develop people? Because people want to be developed. People don't want to just sit and bake for years. At work, my opinions seem to count. Are we asking people their opinions and then using them, right? Not the old box next to the office that you put those opinions in and then nobody ever found out about them. But are we actually asking for important opinions and then are we using those? Now, that doesn't mean we have to, if they give an opinion that doesn't make sense, yes, you go back to them and say, thank you for this opinion. This is why that doesn't make sense. But are we asking them? Some of our best company ideas come from our frontline workers. The mission or purpose of my company makes me feel my job is important. Our responsibilities as managers is to tie what that employee does, no matter whether they're the executive assistant or the COO, to the mission of the company. And so we are bad managers and a bad CEO if we don't tie what they do to the mission of the company and the mission of the company to the world, especially for our millennial population, for all of our populations, but especially our millennial population. Why do I work here and why is it important? My associates or fellow employees are committed to doing quality work. This goes back to if you have people on your payroll that everybody knows Johnny doesn't do a great job, but we just kind of let Johnny be there, or if Johnny always gives us a hard time in staff meetings, but that's just Johnny, right? If we let people continue to do poor quality work and keep them on our payroll, then that's sending a message, and it's one of the highest things that can negatively impact employee engagement. Because if Johnny doesn't work and he still gets paid, why would I work and kill myself? Have a best friend at work. Interestingly enough, we can't really solve that problem, but I don't know if you ever remember why you stayed at a job before. I mean, because you liked to go out to lunch with your friend Jan, right? Or you had all those 3 people that went out for drinks after work, or you enjoyed, you and your spouse enjoyed being a couple with another friend at work. And so we've all stayed at those jobs for a while, longer than we thought we would, because we didn't want to lose those friends. And so are we creating an environment where community is expected, right? Where community is celebrated rather than just everybody individually closes their doors and goes into their work at the same time. In the last 6 months, someone at work has talked to me about my progress. Are we doing at least 6 months reviews? I am not a huge fan of let's review people every Friday, but at least every 6 months we should do a deep dive and talk to them about their progress. And then the last one for the manager side is this last year I've had opportunities to learn and grow. Are we giving them opportunities like my young millennial that I talked to? Not only they gave him a career path, but they told him, these are the ways we're going to invest in you. These are the ways that not only from a leadership perspective, we're going to invest in you, but also how we're going to let you grow in your field. So again, these are all things that impact employee engagement. And if I could just go back to this one slide for a second, look at those numbers. If you drive just those 12 things, which by the way, don't cost any money, those little 12 things, they just cost time. It can turn your turnover 59% less turnover. I mean, that's a pretty big number. So anyway, that is employee engagement. And then back to our original list, create a leadership development program or a mentoring program. If you're a big enough company to do this, and if you're, 15 people, you're a big enough company to do this, creating a leadership development program where when you're recruiting people or you're retaining people, you give them that we're going to spend 5 hours a week or 15 hours a month really helping you in leadership development and pursuing that is a great idea. Mentoring is a great idea too. Not only is it sticky for the young people in your company, but it's sticky for the older people because they feel like they have something to offer. So when you pair an older person that has more experience with a younger person that doesn't, it creates friendships, it creates alliances, there creates mentoring, but it also makes the older person feel like they have something to offer and the younger person going, oh, I don't want to leave there because they're giving me so much value. So again, these are not expensive programs, but they are very, if you go out and recruit and say you've got a mentoring program and a leadership development program, you are 10 steps ahead of most companies, and you'll have one of those levers to push, like I said. And then provide unique benefits. This is kind of quirky, but honestly, a lot of people stay because of these kind of things. On-site childcare, gym memberships, free snacks and drinks, free legal services, free nutritional counseling, weird stuff. I mean, I do these things that we call culture audits, where I go in and I talk to 12 employees in a company that are randomly selected by the CEO. And I do one-on-ones with them. And I ask them questions like, why do you stay? why aren't you leaving like all your like other friends have left their jobs? If you were king for the day, what would you do differently? And believe it or not, I hear all these things about, oh, they give us great craft cocktails or on Fridays, or oh my gosh, they have somebody come in and do yoga on Wednesdays. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding. Of all the things that I make as levers, we need to make sure that we understand that some of these quirky things, like, oh, they bring in a yoga instructor on Wednesdays and I would never leave because of the yoga instructor. I'm like, you were kidding. But anyway, think about those things that could really, really help.
Nice. The employees get together, we get the best bourbons out, right after work. I'm just joking. Not every night. Maybe once.
Hey, it happens. I mean, we have some of those clients, a lot of, you just got to know your audience and your things, and then consider other reasons to stay. I think Jonathan's going to be talking a little bit about this, but profit sharing after X number of years, much higher PTO after X number of years. Maybe you offer 3 weeks of PTO for the first 5 years, but after the first 5 years, it becomes 5. And then if you stay really a long time, it becomes 7. I mean, crazy stuff. I mean, why are they wanting to stay? Most people like time off, right? So are you tethering them with really high options of PTO that they're not going to get if they go to another company? They're going to go back down to 3 or whatever. So think about that. Outside the box things like 6 months after the hire, they get a $2,000 bonus. We have so many people that'll accept a job offer and then we'll keep looking, right? But if they have a $2,000 bonus to stay, it gives you 6 months to make them so endeared to you that they would never leave, right?
So McDonald's had a sign that I saw on the MARTA station and on stuff, and it said $500 paid after like the first 90 days of employment.
Yeah.
That's from McDonald's to their frontline workers. So
Yeah.
This isn't just for, this is for how to retain any sort of.
Yeah, I would say even like, let's say you are a CPA firm and you're retaining CPAs, which by the way, CPAs are one of the hardest things to hire right now in all of Atlanta. I mean, you might want to consider a $10,000 bonus after 6 months, I mean, just so you want to keep them long enough that they can fall in love with you and make friends in the company, right? You want them to be there long enough that, those first couple of months in a new job are always a little tumultuous because you're learning new things. You don't know many people. You feel kind of awkward. You don't feel on the top of your game. So if there's some reason that they can stay for at least 6 months until that we know that at 6 months, usually work normalizes, that's a good thing. So we're just we're trying to figure out any incentives to make them stick, right? Start thinking outside the box. And then my last thing is a great looking work environment. For those of you that do have an office, make sure this is an interesting thing. If I send a candidate into kind of an old, icky work environment, they don't want to go. They don't want to keep interviewing, right? Make sure there's cool furniture and good environments, great technology, open floor plans or offices, just all depending on what you do. They're going to be there more hours than they're at home. Right. So there was an interesting article. I don't know, Jonathan, if you saw it today, but it was I think it's LinkedIn. I can't remember their new headquarters, and it's a hybrid headquarters, and they're making it look more like a living room or a grand hotel than an office complex, because they were like, people want it to look like their living room. And I thought, oh my gosh, we're redoing everything because of the pandemic. But you need to kind of think about that, because when they come to see your office or when they decide to stay in your office, they're looking at other options as well. And then I'm just going to throw this in because I know we're a little bit late, but as you are interviewing for new people, that's your audition. So I know you may have to get new employees, and I'm saying this everywhere I speak right now. I'm preaching to the choir here, but the way your candidate's treated by you and your staff, your communication or lack thereof to the candidate, the way you negotiate the salary, and then the way you give the offer, those are warning signs. Those are warning signs to your candidates, whether you're going to be a good company to work for or a bad company to work for. We have had to teach so many clients about how to communicate and how quickly to communicate. Having an interview on a Wednesday and not getting back to them until the following Monday shows them that you don't care about people. Right? Whether or not you were busy and had something to do and went, to St. Simon's over the weekend. If you tell them the salary range is going to be $70,000 to $90,000, and then you decide at the time that you offer to make it 65 just because you want to get a deal, That shows them that you're not people of your word, not that you're thrifty, right? So again, be really careful with those things. And then the payout is an employee that stays, a candidate that says yes, and a workforce full of A players. I think one of the things that we want to, anybody can keep people, right? Anybody can keep bad people because the bad people can't find jobs. So if you do none of the stuff that I talked about, you can probably keep 2/3 of your staff, but they're probably your B players, right? And you're going to lose your A players. So if you want a staff full of A players, you really need to do this stuff because those are the ones that are getting the offers. You can always, yeah, I have a lot of people say, oh, I have, 65% retention. Yeah, nobody else wants those people, right? So you need to make sure that you're keeping the right people. And then how can we help? Before I pass it over to Jonathan, is that, we do culture and compliance audits. Why would people want to work here? We can craft your recruitment marketing strategy. We'll sell you to the candidates. And basically we create these retention strategies for you. So it's one of the things we come in, we work with your team, your leadership team, and we create this retention strategy so that you can use all these things if you don't want to do it yourself. So with that, I'm going to send it back over to Jonathan.
Awesome.
I can figure out how to not share my screen anymore.
What time are we at?
Yeah, 1:36.
Okay, great. We're right on time. Okay, so we are going to do 5 minutes, 5 quick minutes on contract sprint. And so we got this guy sprinting, right? Again, this is innovative software that we've internally developed. It's our software, it's our contracts, it's our profit sharing plan, it's our coding that we internally did in order to make this work. There are kinks. There will be some mistakes because these are minimal viable products, but we're going to get a chance to try it out. So the first thing you want to do right now on your computers, get excited, go to scott.inprimelegal.com, scott.inprimelegal.com. You're going to get to a white screen and it's going to ask for a password. I'm not giving you the password right now because there is a prize for somebody who wins, and I'll give you the criteria for winning. Second rule is you will draft a contract for use. So none of this like XYZ company, go ahead and use your real company. This is, you've been assigned to draft a profit sharing plan. You may actually have a specific employee in mind. And if you do, you can include the employee's information in there as well. And then, so hold on just a second. I'm about to give you the password, okay? The prize, we're gonna do a couple of books that Cindi and I will kind of put together. I have a feeling Talent Magnet will be in one of those. That's by the Chick-fil-A executive who wrote on retaining talent. And then there is some Clifton books that we can put in there. It's the Manager that Cindi mentioned. And then First Break All the Rules is another great Clifton book from Gallup that's based on actual studies. It's not theory. It's studies that they did on how to retain top talent or any talent for that matter. So those will be thrown in for the first prize winner. And that's going to go to the person who is the fastest at completing the form and getting a contract created and was actually doing it for use. Okay, and so let's go ahead and put up the password. The password is shot in the dark, and we will go ahead and get started. We are timing it to see who can go. So I'm going to start singing some music while you go. Shot in the dark. No further instruction. You're gonna, if the site's confusing, which I hope it's not, then you'll have to figure it out. That's the point, is to see how you use the site. If you don't want to draft a profit sharing plan, you can draft an employment agreement or non-disclosure. There's several there. They all work.